Hello all my Kenvians and welcome to a new movie review here on Papa Ken Media. Today I'm going to be talking about Hellboy, the 2019 edition. Not so much the 2004 original edition movie done by Guillermo del Toro. And those of you that pay attention to things online, or you just, happen to be scrolling through your Facebook or Twitter feed occasionally, may have noticed that the new Hellboy has not been very well received. For example, the new one on Rotten Tomatoes alone has a 15% rating. Now if we look at IMDb, it has a slightly more favorable score of 5.4, so pretty average. And then on Facebook, at least, a 3.8 out of 5, so I don't know where they pull those ratings from. But yeah, the original, just for clarification, the original movie from 2004 has an 81% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 6.9 out of 10 on IMDb. So on IMDb, not a huge difference, but still just about, we basically have a 1.5 score difference there. And well, as for my overall thoughts, or what I would rate this movie, well, if you really want to know that, skip ahead to this part of the video. That's all you want to know is just the score and overall thoughts. But if I talk about anything that's truly spoilery, I will make sure to include a timestamp here in the video so you can skip ahead to get past that part. I'll try and keep all the spoilery stuff condensed, but avoiding spoilers for now, let's talk about the good parts about this movie. Starting with Hellboy himself, played by David Harbour, aka Jim Hopper from Stranger Things. If you've never seen that show, you've probably seen him some other places, but that's where I know him best. And yes, not having Ron Perlman in to play Hellboy was... It was sad. It was sad, because Ron Perlman was Hellboy for those first two movies. He does such a good job. I truly enjoyed him. But unlike some of the feedback that people were giving online when the first trailers came out, I was willing to give this new Hellboy a chance, this new person playing him. And I didn't even realize it was David Harbour. Honest to God, I didn't realize it was him until the credits played during the movie, because for whatever reason, I just never looked it up. But David Harbour does a really good job. And part of that is actually what leads into some of the negative aspects, but I'll get to that in a few minutes. Just basically, David Harbour does an excellent job at Hellboy. He captures the mood, he captures the tone of voice. To me, it seems like he was truly a fan, and I don't know this for sure, but it seems like he was a fan, or at the very least did his research and saw the first two movies to get the personality of Hellboy down as it was played by Ron Perlman. So yeah, definite thumbs up to David Harbour in that regard. My second favorite part of this movie is really kind of a side character who we don't get enough of in the movie, and I won't go into their backstory, or again, anything spoilery, but the character's name is Alice. And just to give minor detail on her, she's essentially a medium. She's able to talk with ghosts, and she hears information from ghosts in the world of the paranormal, obviously. And I really like her. And she's also, aside from Hellboy, the only character whose name I truly remembered from this entire movie. Even the primary villain is like, I kind of had an idea of what the name was, but I had to make sure on IMDb. So, aside from the main character Hellboy, Alice is the only one whose name I remembered. Which is kind of funny considering the villain is played by Milla Jovovich, and her most famous character, arguably, is Alice from the Resident Evil movies. So, I don't know, maybe that played a little part in it, I'm not sure. But yeah, she is excellent. Again, won't go into much detail, but if you see the movie, I think you will like her a lot too. And then, probably the best part about this movie overall is the action. I feel like they did the action, and I want to specify here, the fighting scenes really well. They're truly enjoyable. They make the most of what they've got in their action scenes, in the fights with Hellboy, even some without Hellboy, but yeah, it's really well done. There's definitely a lot of CGI. I know a lot of people like to crap on movies for overdoing the CGI, and this movie would probably give them plenty of ammo to shoot with in that regard. But I feel like the CGI was done pretty well, or at the very least, entertainingly. And that would probably be the biggest selling point for me in regard to this movie, is it's entertaining. It feels like just a fun, stupid summer blockbuster before the summer. Like, you know, as we're still in spring and as there's still snow melting in certain places here in Minnesota. Don't at me. Anyway, moving on from there, the negatives. And again, I'll try and keep this spoiler free, but if I feel like it does sort of fall into spoiler territory, I will include the timestamp down here so you can skip ahead if you wish. First of all, the villain is interesting, but not threatening. Or she doesn't feel super threatening. I don't know. I mean, I hate that this is probably a bit of a sexist view of it, but just something about the way Milla Jovovich plays the character, or could just be the way the character is written, just doesn't feel super scary. Like throughout the movie, everyone talks about how she's terrifying. She will destroy the entire world. And she will bring plagues upon, she will bring plagues upon the world. And yeah, that's an element to her character, but it's, with a few exceptions, it's really, we're just told that and not shown that. Yeah, I just didn't feel like she was a huge threat throughout this movie. And when there actually was a threat, okay, spoiler territory here, again, timestamp for anyone that does not want to hear any spoilers. But near the end of the movie, or basically at the end of the movie, something happens that essentially unleashes hell upon the earth, at least within Great Britain. And if you've seen the trailers, you might have seen like these giant, just hellish figures that look like partly their skin is melting, or it's like, you know, their body parts are razors. They're truly terrifying. And they're part of the movie all of 5 minutes maybe. Like, the fact that it didn't focus more on that, and instead it's like the big bad was this, what is her name? I keep forgetting it. I don't want to just keep calling her Milla Jovovich. Nimue. The fact that they focus so much on her and paint her out to be this big super bad, which admittedly she does wipe out a lot of people, she's not as threatening, she's not as scary as these huge figures that just do these hellish things on screen for the time that they're there. And even then, after they've been on screen for that little bit of time, after a certain thing changes, again, I don't want to spoil it for anyone that actually wants to see the movie, something happens and they all just get sent back to hell. it's like a big vacuum from hell begins sucking all the demons it just unleashed, and they're gone. It's, in that regard, it felt so... It's like, I don't even know how to explain it. They just had such good villains, or even if Nimue was the primary villain and these are what she unleashed, or they are what she's responsible for unleashing, and they had to be dealt with, that would have been one thing. But no, they're just gone all of a sudden, and that really takes away from the movie for me. But okay, moving away from that, and again getting off the spoilers, another element of this movie that I feel is a negative, it's kind of two things in one, but probably the most overall way to say it is, at times I feel like they didn't know what kind of movie they wanted to go for. I didn't know if they wanted to go for like something just like, a fun action comedy, or if they wanted to be serious and dark. The original Hellboy movies, I feel like, did a really good balance with that, usually aiming more on like, the dark gothic feel of everything with some comedy sprinkled in. But with this one, I don't know. Again, on one hand, sometimes there would be like those big, awesome action scenes, which I'm not going to rail on. They were done well. But, and this brings me to the second part of the issue, they would have just not even heavy metal, not even like, just deep toned metal or rock along with it. They would have like modern poppy rock sounding songs. And there were a few scenes where I felt like the more modern music worked, in my opinion. They were in the minority, unfortunately, but it did work. And then, like, toward the end, they finally start introducing this gothic soundtrack, this thing that you expect to see. Again, maybe I'm forgetting some things from the original Hellboy movies, but I feel like they overall use more cinematic, more gothic toned music. And when it's done in this movie, it's done super well. And it really adds to the scenes, what's going on at the time. But then, it's like people will be driving and suddenly there's this poppy rock music going on that, given the right scene, could work. But they just don't. It's like whoever did the sound design for this movie, I don't know, maybe during the actual cinematic portions, again with the gothic soundtrack, is like that person was, on the job, but then they got sick and then they hired that person's 20-ish-year-old son to handle the rest of the soundtrack. I don't know. But it really took away from everything, in that it's like it made the tone inconsistent, not only of the fights where those were used, but it really made the tone of the movie as a whole just annoying, to be completely honest. And then finally, and what I feel like is my biggest issue with the movie, and this is probably going to be one that's fairly common among other people who are fans of the original Guillermo del Toro Hellboy movies. It's just a flat-out reboot, which wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. I don't feel like that's necessarily a bad thing to do the reboot if it's done well. However, they had enough original ideas within the story to have had it been a continuation of those other movies, or even just sort of an alternate universe continuation, like with some differences. Like in this case, the doctor, or I'm sorry, Professor Broom is still alive, aka Hellboy's dad. I don't feel like that's a spoiler because he's in the trailers. But at the same time in the movie, not only they recap Hellboy's origins again, like in the first movie, which is like one of the very early scenes, they literally rip a lot of those original scenes from the 2004 movie and include it here. It's a very much an alternate universe kind of deal. It's not exactly the same, but a lot of the same characters are there. So, again, it just blows my mind that they didn't just incorporate this story as sort of a continuation of those old stories, because at least it would have worked in a sense. I don't know. And also, just going along with that, they, like again, the Hellboy being played very similarly, but okay, this is gonna jump into spoiler territory again, so yeah, just skip ahead to this time. But some people might be upset that there's no Abe Sapien. I think that's what they call him in the original Hellboy movie and the comics. But it's like, the merman, shall we say. And it kind of technically makes an appearance, but not until the very, very end. Like, the very end of the movie. And it's not even an appearance, it's just they find his capsule, and the last sting of the movie is, you see their webbed hand touch the glass side of the container. It's, I don't know, maybe in the next one they will bring that character back, and they may even use the original actor. It's unlikely, but it's a possibility. But yeah, there's in the spoilers, but I think overall there was growing pains that even if it's a reboot, they retreaded things that they didn't need to and they shouldn't have. Like with the latest Spider-Man movie that came out. They could have done an origin story again, but they didn't. And I know it's a different situation, but at the same time, there was no need to recover Hellboy's origin stories, or at least not in the detail that they did, and they could have just continued on with, this is Hellboy, this is his dad, and Hellboy is from hell. Yeah, that would have been it. Another minor gripe is at the very beginning of the movie, it feels like they cover the origin stories of Nimue, this bad guy. And again, it's in the opening minutes, so I don't consider this spoilers, but it includes King Arthur and Merlin and stuff like that. And the person talking over it, as far as I can tell, is not an actual character in the movie. It just sounds like a voiceover for a trailer for a different movie. And after that ends, we get the title screen for Hellboy. It's like, we don't even see Hellboy. The entire opening, all we get is this introduction of who the bad guy is and why they're bad, and this is the entire setup for the movie. And I hate using this phrase because I feel like it gets overused, but that's bad writing. That's bad movie writing. Like, unless the movie itself is focusing on the bad guy the entire time, unless the bad guy is the focus of your movie, don't make the entire intro just about them. And most of all, don't have it have a narrator who is just one big exposition piece, because it's lame. It's really bad. Oh, sorry, I feel like I kind of lost it there. But to sum everything up, What is my opinion on this movie? Now, yes, it does have a lot of issues in my opinion, especially as a fan of the original Hellboy movies. However, it is fun. It is a fun, enjoyable movie. Its action is very pleasing. It's very entertaining. And just the performance again by David Harbour as Hellboy, in my opinion, is reason alone to watch the movie. Like, if they do a sequel, which considering how badly this one seems to be doing is unlikely, if they were to do another Hellboy movie, or even if Guillermo gets back at the helm and they decide to continue the original movies, David Harbour would be an excellent pick if Ron Perlman just doesn't want to. I'm being completely serious here. He does an excellent job, and I think he has earned his role as Hellboy. And it's, again, I feel like that's the biggest thing. It's entertaining. Now, for some people, they want to see more than that. They want to see, like, you know, Guillermo del Toro's vision continued. You're not going to get that with this movie. And unfortunately, I would say, if you haven't seen the original Hellboy movies, I don't know that this one would sell you on Hellboy, to be completely honest. It might be an intro to it, and if it piques your interest, you might want to watch the original too. It's hard to say in that regard, but I can only say from my perspective, but it is an entertaining movie. It was honestly quite good. These are just the major gripes of mine on it overall, and you know, that's really all I can say. If you have an issue with gore, ludicrous amounts of gore at times, yeah, that might also not be a good selling point for you because it has a lot. But as a whole, as a fun, dumb movie, or action movie, I would recommend seeing it. But if you see it in the theater, only pay matinee prices, or wait until it's available on something like Netflix or one of those other services, until you're able to see it for cheap. I don't think it's worth full price by any means, and the number of people in the theater would definitely agree with me on that as well, because there were 3 people in that theater aside from me. Not a good thing. But everyone, thank you so much for watching this review of Hellboy. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments down below. If you've seen the movie, what did you think of it? Let me know if you disagree. Did you think it was worse than what I'm saying? Or did you actually enjoy it more than I did? I think this is unlikely, but if you actually liked this movie more than the original, let me know. I don't, if someone does say that in the comments down below, I don't want anyone trolling them, because I'm definitely not going to. I'm legitimately curious to know why, if that happens to be the case. But all that aside, I hope you all enjoy the movie if you do go see it. If not, I kind of warned you. Don't expect anything more than a fun popcorn flick if you see it. Yeah. Anyway, this has been fun. I'm really wanting to do more of these movie reviews. In fact, I have another movie that I'm going to be reviewing very soon. I'm going to be seeing it for a second time today. So, yeah, I'll have it fresh on my mind. But until next time, everyone, I'm Papa Ken. Let me know if there's any upcoming movies that you would like to see me do a review on. I will try to keep them as short as possible, but as you all know, I tend to ramble, so no promises in that regard. But until next time, everyone, I am Papa Ken. See you in the next video.